Oh, there's Harry. Wow, gosh, it's been a long time. Okay. So just so hi Harry, we can't see you yet. Hopefully you can hear me. We've started recording.
Okay.
So yeah, I haven't seen you for ages, but I guess you've been busy.
I know. Not with anything exciting, just work and
okay.
Sadly.
Well, depends. Work can be quite exciting sometimes. Depends.
Yeah. Exactly.
I had a little drama last week.
Oh no.
It's sorted out though, fortunately. Okay, so I think that should be all right with the other camera. So before we get going, so I was gonna do some work on the feet, but I've changed my mind because there's enough material. So we are going to be working on at the floor level, but I'd like you to have a bolster if you can to start with, and a few bricks, or something equivalent to these yoga bricks, because they're going to come up. We're going to need them later on. So we're going to start off with, I like to have a few bricks behind the head. So we're going to start off with a pose we've used quite a bit, which is Supta Baddha Konasana. So I wanted to work, just to say before we get going, I wanted to work mainly like from the hips down to the knees. I'm going to be working around the thighs quite a bit. I mean, we're not going to exclusively work that area, but I thought it would be interesting just to give that area a good workout. So it's, the thighs are an important area. In some ways, it's like our motor. It's, our movement and our strength and stability come from the upper leg, you could say, in the pelvis. Okay, so the first pose is going to be an opening pose. So I'd like you to lie back. Remember that the bolster comes in at about the tips of the shoulder blades. Okay, that's it. And then it's important to support the head. Depending on your flexibility, you could, as it were, lose the bricks. You can have less and less bricks behind the head. But I personally like to support that, at least at the beginning, because it's the first pose. And then we spread the arms out as much as you can. The arms are above the bolster. Okay, so this does work the upper back, which we were looking at the last time I taught 2 weeks ago. But we're going to focus more on the lower body. Okay, so on the pelvis, the hips, groins, inner legs, thighs. Okay, so I'd like us just to lie back for a few moments, partly to, as it were, get into the yoga space and to check in. So if there's any problem with the sound or maybe the camera during the session, do let me know and we'll see if we can sort that out. I could always switch to the computer audio. So I'm using these AirPods, which I think give a slightly better quality sound. Okay, so first of all, tuning in with the body. So I just wanted to say, actually, I've just started reading a really interesting book, but I'm reluctant to say any more about it, but it's too much about it, should I say. But it's based around the idea of healing the body. It's particularly traumatic experience basically through body awareness. So one of the things that she's talking about at the beginning, which I think is very relevant to all of us, is the idea that you can be aware of the body, as it were, somehow separate from yourself, or you can be aware of the body within the body, which is what is more interesting. That's what we're aiming for. There's a sense of awareness of the body from within the body. So it's really important, the quality of receptivity, to get into this kind of awareness. It's not like us looking at our body, as it were, objectively from afar, We're trying to, in a sense, close the gap between subjective and objective when we're practicing awareness. Well, in fact, we're trying to dissolve that distinction, you could say, ultimately, or see that there is no distinction, ultimately. So it takes patience, perhaps more than anything. So, okay, first of all, you're aware. It might be just aware of your body, in a sense, objectively. It's like, tightness in the legs, or tightness in the chest, or tiredness, or too much heat in the body, or too cold. But what I'd like to invite you to do is to start to inhabit the body, as it were, from the body. If that makes any sense. The sense of, you could say, sort of owning and tuning in more intimately with these sensations. So we'll come back to this material once I've become more familiar. The work is interesting in that it's very clearly based in Buddhist awareness practices. So the writer is like more of a psychologist, psychotherapist. So first of all, noticing any uncomfortable sensations, any tensions, blocks, any tightness, or any obvious imbalances. So we're going to be working through the body evenly. So that will help to balance up the body, the energy in the body, help to stimulate the energy. But in a sense, we don't need to worry about that. We'll just let the yoga practice do that. What I'd like us to do now is to really tune in with what's actually going on, get a sense of what's going on. So if you want to enhance the stretch through the upper back, we could take the arms above the head. You do want to be able to rest the arms if you're going to do that. So I'm resting my arms folded on the blocks, but you could also interlace the fingers behind the head. Taking our attention freely into the body. And then becoming aware of your mood, sense of the emotional tone that you're in right now. Again, there might be a sense of separation or disconnection. That's fine. We can recognize that, we can acknowledge that we're not that clear, or it might be there's a particular mood or quality of heart present and obvious. And then moving on to an awareness of the breath. So I'd like you, in this session, let your breath move freely. We will be moving with the breath quite a bit in the posture work. And then being aware of this quality of anitya, change, transformation. Our experience is one of shifting, dynamic. Even noticing any changes in the body already, having been in this posture for a few minutes, sensations shifting in the pelvic area, across the groins, or across the back of the pelvis, in the sacral area. Okay, and then from here we're going to release the arms. So if you had them above your head, bring them around to your sides. And then we're not going to sit up, okay? So keep your head low, keep your body close to the floor, and bring the soles of the feet to the floor and start to, as it were, wriggle or slide down towards your feet, keeping the head low. At some point, your head will then be supported on the roll or on the bolster. So you can take that out of the way. We're not going to use that for the time being. Coming into semi-supine. The bricks, might be useful to have one brick handy. Okay, and take a pause in semi-supine. Okay, from there, we're going to roll now to one side. So we're going to focus this evening or this afternoon also on the thigh and the knee area. So I have drawn some of this material from our 500-hour sequences, the therapeutic approach to yoga. So I'd like you to place one brick or some padding. It could be a blanket. I'm going to come into all fours. So I'm going to support my left knee. I'm going to bring my right foot forwards, okay? And depending on your flexibility, you'll have a longer base. So the distance between the feet will be longer, but you can have your feet on tram line. So you don't need to line up the feet or anything, okay? Each foot is lined up with each hip. And with this movement, we're going to stay low. So as we exhale, I want us to move back and we can actually pick up the front foot, okay? So we start to stretch the back of the right leg. And then on the inhale, we move forwards and move towards the lunge, okay? But we keep the head down. As you exhale, you move back and allow the front foot to come up. And on the inhale, come forwards, swinging forwards gently. You can lift the gaze slightly, but we're not lifting the chest up, okay? It's moving back. On the exhale, picking up the front foot. Inhale, moving forwards. And just gently working into this, okay? So there might be some tightness in the back of the leg for sure. Might be some tightness in the groins. Well, this will help to loosen that area up. Moving back, I'm walking backwards and forwards on the fingertips, and I'm keeping the movement fairly gentle. So if being on the fingertips doesn't work, you can come on to like the knuckles. Moving the pelvis, more or less tracking it forwards in a straight line, tracking it back in a straight line. On the inhale, coming forwards. On the exhale, moving back. Okay, we'll do two more. Inhaling forwards. Exhaling back, picking up that front foot. Toes. And then come back into all fours for a moment. Rest back down into child's pose for a moment. Breathe there. It's so warm here. Gonna open the window. Coming back into all fours and move your support to the right knee. So the left foot comes forwards. And distance between the feet is really dictated by as it were, your openness across the groins. So on the inhale, we're swinging forwards. On the exhale, swinging back, picking up the left toes, moving forwards. So it's a variation of a lunge, low lunge. I've got my back toes tucked under, but you could equally have the top of the foot on the floor. But it might feel more stable to have the toes tucked under on the back foot. Moving forwards on the inhale. Tuning in with the breath, tuning in with the changing sensations around the thigh, the groins, the outer hip, back of the leg. The gaze can go forwards on the inhale, going down on the exhale. Okay, we'll do 2 more forwards on the inhale and back on the exhale. Listening into the body. If you can connect into the experience as it's unfolding. Next time we inhale, coming into all fours, we're going to rest back into child's pose for a moment. From child's pose, sitting up. So we're going to do a couple of poses based on Beerasana, or it's basically kneeling pose. So I'd like us to first of all just sit on the heels, okay? So you can tuck, you want to try and bring the top of the foot onto the floor and really, as it were, bring the flesh. When Mike is, it feels like it's slightly very upper thigh, back of the thighs, pressing down on the heels. So it's quite intense on the ankles, front ankle. And just letting your weight sink into the front of the ankle. Okay, so we're opening that area. So if that's too intense, let's see, is everybody doing okay with that? Looks like they are. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I think if you were teaching people that had really tight front ankle, you'd need to put a roll underneath the front of the ankle. That's what I would do. I'd roll at the back of the mat or put up a roll blanket underneath the ankles. That would be a way round that, because you are, this area, this front ankle, front shin, can be very tight in a lot of people. I'm just noticing that stretch in there on the front of the ankle, coming off the top of the foot. Okay, from here, if we can, we separate the feet about hip width, and then we're going to try and bring our sitting bones down to the floor. So it's a more intense work for around the knee. This is a more classic Beerasana, or hero's pose as it's called. Again, if you are working with students that can't get into this position, can't bring the sitting bones down, then the obvious thing would be to sit on a brick. In fact, a lot of people sit meditating on 2 or 3 bricks in the kneeling position. Okay, the typical setup is like 3 bricks. So obviously that's much lighter on the body. Take a brick away, gets more intense on the thighs and the knees and ankles. Take the bricks away completely, it intensifies again. So again, you can close the eyes for a moment. Okay, it's not a particularly dramatic pose. Okay, it's almost more of a meditative pose. But I'd like you to bring your awareness into the pelvis and really try and bring your weight, have a sense of the weight of the body going through the front edge of the sitting bones, and then the spine lining up, observing its natural curves, so the lumbar curve, the thoracic curve, the neck curve. So when we talk about a straight spine, we're honoring that S shape of the spine. You're not trying to flatten the spine. That's like a really bad idea. So the curves are there for a good reason. Okay, they help to support the weight and maintain a sense of movement and flexibility in the spine, as well as stability. If you notice with your spine, I've said this before, but underneath the weight of the head, you've got the neck spine, which is a lordosis, right? It's a curve into the body. So that actually is much more capable of supporting the weight of the head than a straight spine would be. Okay, so I had one student who suffered a climbing accident, and her neck spine went completely straight, and it was really, really debilitating. So we've got a lordosis there in the neck spine, and equally in the lumbar spine, there's that curve into the body, lumbar lordosis. So it's supporting the weight of the thoracic. Okay, good. From there, carefully come forwards and extend one leg at a time. Open the backs of the legs. Okay, so I'm going to show this sideways on. This is, I'm sure some of you have done this with me before. So I want you to sit back onto your heels again and bring your hands onto your hips. This is something that Salata showed me. This is really quite intense. Okay, so, and even though we're not doing a lot, so we're going to tip the pelvis slightly forward and lift up, but not completely lifting up. So you're keeping the front of the hips tucked back. And on an exhale, you lower yourself towards the floor, but we're not going to sit onto the heels. You come to maybe just a few centimeters from the heels, and then as you inhale, you lift up again. So you're keeping the thighs really engaged, keeping the pelvis tucked back on the inhale. As you exhale, we'll do this just as a trial. So you're not sitting all the way down, you're keeping the thighs engaged, bringing your weight up again. You feel how that really works deep into the thigh muscle. The knees are together, thighs are together. Okay, let's rest back to the heels. Have we got that idea? So it's you're keeping the pelvis tucked back, and it's worth really thinking about grounding the shins. Okay, so thinking about opening that area, the front ankle towards the floor. So on again on an inhale, slightly swing forwards, tip the pelvis forwards, lifting up, being aware that we're not going to sit back down for a while. Okay, so let's see if we could do 4 or 5 movements up and down. Exhale down, not dropping all the way to the heels. That's kind of like cheating, if you like. Inhale, come up, not all the way up, because that also gets very easy when we start to do that. Keeping the pelvis tucked back, as it were, the roots of the thighs tucked back and in. You can even bring your fingertips to the front thigh or front hip to have a sense of what's going on there. Keeping that area tucked back. Inhale, coming up. Exhale, lowering ourselves down. Not all the way to the heels. One more time. And rest back. Rest back onto your heels. Relax the arms for a moment. Pause there. Okay, we're going to open the backs of the legs, coming into all fours. One leg at a time. Extending out the legs. Okay, let's just try that one more time. Okay, so if you can, knees together, feet together, the heels, as it were, pointing upwards. We start off sitting back onto the heels. It's like an adapted Beerasana. Okay, my fingertips dropping into just partly as a marker. So I'm just bringing my fingertips into the crease, as it were, between the thigh and the pelvis. And then on an inhale, swinging slightly forwards and up. Inhaling, exhale, lowering myself down, but not dropping all the way to the heels. Just one last round. Inhale up. So it's as though we're like floating just off the floor, not coming all the way up, keeping, as it were, the sitting bones tucked back, the pelvis tipping forwards, anteversion, right? The pelvis. tops of the feet grounding. One more round up on the inhale. Exhale, release down and sit back to the heels. Relax the arms. Close your eyes for a moment. Tuning in with the sensations in the thighs and growing the spine. Observing those curves, lumbar curve, thoracic curve, neck curve. Softening the arms, releasing the shoulders. Okay, and then from there, swinging your legs forwards. Okay, again, this is quite a particular movement. So for this position, it might be helpful to sit onto one brick, okay? And we're going to extend the arms down to our sides. So it's like a Dandasana position. Slightly behind the line of the hips. If your arms, depending on your proportion, you might want to bring the floor up. It might suit you, if you're sitting on a brick, it might suit you to then bring up the hands onto bricks. There's a sense of more lift through the upper body. The upper body really stays quiet in this movement. So on an inhale, we're going to point the toes away from us. And on the exhale, we're going to pull the toes back. So this is called plantar extension, and plantar flexion. Okay, so as you inhale, you point the toes away from you. And as you exhale, pull the toes back towards you. Inhale, pointing the toes away. Exhale, pulling back the toes. So opening the backs of the legs again. Inhale, extending. Exhale, flexing. I always mix these up. I always mix up which one is flexion, which one is extension. But you're pivoting the the ankle forwards on the inhale. And exhale, pivoting the ankle back. Opening the feet as much as possible. It's very kind of specific movement. Okay, next time we exhale and draw the toes back, I want you to extend the arms up. Reach up and then see if you can reach forwards towards the toes. So if they don't reach, that's fine. But we're just going to maintain this position of drawing the toes back towards the body for a while. Then think about lengthening through the front of the body. Lengthening through the front of the body. Okay, so if you're not reaching the toes, that's fine. We can bring the hands to the shins. But keep as it were, the feet on and active, drawing the toes back, spreading the toes even. Opening the backs of the legs towards the floor. Lengthening through the front of the body. Breathing there. So we're working from, in fact, like the back of the body, the back of the upper body, all the way through the back of the legs, to the sole of the foot, all the connective tissues down that chain. And then we're going to see if we can be in the pose a little bit more relaxed, so less, as it were, less active, the legs, but see if you can maintain that sense of drawing the toes back towards you, but less effort. Okay, so more softening. Breathing there. Okay, and then releasing the toes. Bring yourself more back up to the upright. And once again, let's just try this again. So take the hands back behind you, sense of lengthening through the spine. Just one more time. On the inhale, pointing the toes away from you, exploring that. Exhale, drawing the toes back, pointing the heels. Inhale, extending the toes forwards. So again, with somebody with a lot of tightness in the back of the legs, you might put a rolled blanket underneath the backs of the knees. You could explore that. Exhale, pointing the heels, spreading the toes. Inhale, extending the feet forwards. Connecting the movement with your breath. So as you inhale, pushing the toes away from you. Exhale, pushing the heels away from you, drawing the toes back. Okay, and releasing. I want you to bring the hands on the back of the thighs, draw the knees up. Move forwards into all fours. Okay. From all fours, we're going to tuck the toes under and lift the pelvis and come into a more classic pose, dog pose. Spreading the toes, bending the knees slightly to lift your sitting bones, bringing the head in line with the upper arms. And then you can explore dropping the heels back and down. Okay. From there, I want you to bring the feet together, so the big toes together. And on inhale, extend your right leg back, keeping the pelvis more or less level. This is a more intense stretch on the lower leg. So you can extend your right leg, or if it's your left leg that's up, in line with the line of the body, more or less. Keeping the pelvis more or less facing the floor. It will roll away from the floor, okay? Breathing there. Spreading the hands, spreading the balls of the feet. Inhale, coming down on fours for a moment. Take a pause there. If you need to reposition your hands, I'm finding they're sliding a little bit. Back up into dog pose, feet separated. Once again, bring the big toes together, so it's like we're in a more narrow foot base. And extend the left leg up and back. If you can, opening the back of both legs, particularly the down leg. So dropping the heel. Let's just see what's happening here. Okay. Feeling that stretch in the calf, the back of the leg, breathing. Okay, the pelvis does, as it were, roll off in its axis. So try and keep the pelvis more or less facing towards the floor. Inhale, once again, coming into all fours. And take a pause into child's pose. Rest down, forehead down. Resting the head onto the hands or onto the floor. Take a pause there. Inhaling up into all fours again. It's going to move more now into a stretching, deep stretching sequence for the pelvis. So coming up into dog pose. So this is really familiar with it. So I want you to swing your right leg, which should be your right leg forwards into the pigeon position. And then we're going to drop down over that leg. So we're going to go for this deep stretch into the hip area. Coming on to the forearms. So just to keep the energy a little bit lifted, we'll keep the chest lifted, okay? So extending or lengthening, it's probably better to say, lengthening from the front of the pelvis towards the throat area. So you can keep keeping the front of the body long. And allowing that work to drop down, or allowing gravity to work down into the right hip to really engage or work the right hip structures. For someone who's got knee troubles, we'd offer, I'll just show you this, because I know Sangeeta, who's not here, she has some students that struggle with knee issues. So you'd come into the lying on the back, with the arm threaded through the legs. That would be a good alternative. Okay. If you can, stay there a little bit longer. Again, tuning in with the sensations. Seeing if we can aim to sort of, it's the kind of language we've been using. So it's like we're like crawling into our bodies rather than observing the bodies from the outside. So you're feeling what's happening around the right buttock, right thigh, right inner groin, right knee. And being in that experience. So if it helps, closing the eyes for a few moments. Still a sense of length from the front of the pelvis to the throat, to the face. And then from here, dropping the right buttock down, we're going to link this pose to the shoelace pose. So it felt like we had to do this if we're going to work on the pelvis. So coming into shoelace as best you can. So the left leg is swinging over the right leg. I'm coming up into the sitting up position, upright position. I can rest the hands on the top knee, as I'm showing here. Or if you prefer, you could bring the palms onto the soles of the feet. Again, this is a pose we're probably familiar with. So see if you can come into it as though it's the first time you're doing it. And generating some interest, curiosity, what's going on around the pelvis, the groins, outer thighs. So that we're working into the pelvis, softening around the shoulders. And releasing the arms, letting go around the neck, the shoulders, upper back. So one of the theories or ideas that this woman is exploring in the book on the body and trauma, which is an idea I've heard before, and I'd like to kind of know more about it, to be quite honest. But she's proposing that the fascia are like a kind of memory board, like a memory. What's the word? Like almost like a kind of depository for our experiences, traumas, which can be physical. So she gives cases of like accidents, car accidents, or physical abuse from a parent or something like that. So that gets held in the fascia, almost like a kind of knot. And it can become then quite unconscious. So it becomes a limitation to our movement and our expression of the body in itself. So fascia, you find it everywhere in the body, particularly concentrated in the joints. You find it everywhere. It's even the cell structure itself is fascia, it's connective tissue. And if you work one part of the body, you effectively work the whole body because it's all connected. So we can also leave imprints, like almost like mental imprints, she's suggesting, or memories, like within the fascia. So obviously it sounds very interesting, but as I say, I'm just beginning to look into this. Yeah. Okay, from here, I want us to carefully release the legs forwards. So we'll come back around into the dog pose. Open the backs of the legs, separating the feet. From there, coming into all fours, we're going to swing the left knee forwards, coming into the swan pose or the pigeon pose on the left side. Come down onto the forearms. So this slower way of working, this yin style work, it aims more concretely towards the connective tissue, the fascia. That's why I mentioned this idea of the fascia. Gently arriving into the pose, a sense of length through the front of the body. So I'm holding my body, as it were, away from the floor, parallel to the floor. So I'm not completely collapsing down. And allowing the pose to soak into the body. And tuning in with the experience as keenly, as precisely as you can. Listening in. Noticing tensions, blocks, limitations. So though we're focusing on the lower body in this pose, if you can take your awareness through the upper body, through the neck, spine, into the head. Sense of broadness across the upper back, upper chest, chest area, which you can help to maintain while the forearms grounded, sense of openness across the front of the body. And then from there, we're letting our weight shift onto the left buttock as we swing the right leg forwards. And we're wrapping the top leg over the lower leg, so the right leg comes over as much as is possible. Resting the hands onto the top knee, the spine now coming into the vertical axis, closing the eyes. Listening into your experience. Softening around the shoulders. This pose, one of the things it's got to offer is a strong sense of grounding through the pelvis, through the sitting bones, through the seat. So at the same time, there's a sense of growing the spine. Tuning in with the breath, which may be quite quiet now. An important aspect of this approach to yoga is approaching the body with kindness. So even if it's not altogether comfortable, the experience, sometimes these sensations of blocks or limitations are going to feel unpleasant, basically, or unwanted even. Just see if we can be with them, be with that tightness around the shoulder, or around the hip, be with that tension in the belly, let it be there. The idea being that, okay, it's unpleasant maybe in the moment, but overall there's a sense of becoming more alive to your experience, which will as much enliven the positive or pleasant experience as much as the unpleasant. So as it were, the game here, or the word in English, like the proposition is to enhance or develop our awareness. Okay, from there, releasing the legs out, extending. We're just going to come back to one style pose like that later on, but yin style pose. So I'd like to come around now onto your belly. And we're going to focus down into some more toning work. So coming down onto the floor. So as it were, lengthening the front of the body towards the floor, and bring your hands down next to the chest area, slightly forward of your elbows, and then bring your feet together. So the inner feet are touching, okay? So we're going to do two approaches to a movement called Vipassana. So the first one's more simple. So as you inhale, I want you to lift the chest, separate the legs as wide as you can. And as you exhale, you bring yourself back into the center line and drop back down. So the head meets the floor, the tops of the feet meet the floor. And repeat that. Inhale, lifting the chest, the gaze, separating the feet. Exhale, drawing back in. Elbows tucked in towards your body, at least in line with the shoulders. Inhale, lifting. It's quite a powerful movement, even though it's quite small. So if you can open the front of the pelvis towards the floor, as it were, press the pubic bone towards the floor as you exhale. Draw back into the center line and repeat. Exploring gradually the possibility of lifting a little bit more powerfully, separating the legs and feet as much as is possible. I'll give a rest now. Inhale into all fours. Exhale back into child's pose. Rest there, resting the head to the floor, to the hands. As I've said before, if you prefer, sit back onto your feet. If you want to be in a more upright position, you don't want to be so close to the floor. Fine, just to sit back onto the feet. And then from there, coming forwards onto all fours again. And bringing the chest down. Bringing the hands in close to your body, slightly forward of the elbows, elbows in. Feet once again touching, inner feet touching. It's just a slightly different. I don't think looking is going to help very much, but I'll describe it as I'm doing it. Okay, so as we inhale, we lift and separate the feet and lift the chest. As we exhale, we gather ourselves into the center line, but don't drop to the floor. You lower yourself to the floor, but don't drop to the floor. And then inhale, separate again, lifting again. And then you drop to the floor. So it's like a double Vipassana. So I'll just describe that again. Take a pause, take a rest. So it's in 2 breaths. On an inhale, lifting the chest, separating the feet, lifting the legs. On the exhale, gathering to the center line, but not dropping to the floor, lowering a bit. Inhale, opening again, lifting the chest again, and then drop to the floor, take a rest, feet into the center line, forehead down, elbows tucking in. Take a pause there, resting. So maybe it'd be helpful if I change direction, just visually. So we'll do that 3 more times. Let's see if this works. As you can begin to see what's happening in the legs. Okay, so I'm gathering into the center line. I'm on the floor, forehead down. On an inhale, I lift the chest, separate the legs. Exhale, gather into the center line, but don't drop to the floor. Elbows tucked in, and then lift and separate again. Second part. then release to the floor. Okay, and then do that 2 more times on your own breath. Inhale, lifting, separating the feet. Exhale, lowering yourself but not touching the floor. And inhale again, lifting and separating. And just check what's going on here. And then exhale, rest completely to the floor. Head down, feet coming to the center line. Take a pause there. Feel free to take a longer pause. And then when you're ready, repeat that once again. Lifting, separating the legs, feet, lifting the gaze. Exhale, not all the way to the floor. Lift again, a second pulse. It's like a double pulse. Vimarsana, and then exhale down and rest. Last one. On the inhale, lifting, separating the feet. Okay, so if you want to intensify more, you could lift the hands. Exhale, floating just off the floor. Inhale once again, lift. Exhale down all the way to the floor. Take a pause and move back into either sitting on the feet or child's pose. Okay. Breathing now for a bit, reconnecting with stillness, listening into what's going on in your body, softening all the way through the body, from the crown, through the neck, shoulders, back. So this is also, okay, so we're working into the legs and the pelvis, but it's also working the lower back area, so you will feel that area working. Taking awareness through the legs into the soles of the feet. Then from there, once again, coming through all fours, coming down onto your belly again. This time we're going to keep the upper body quiet. So you can actually, the way I do this is I bring my forearms forward and rest the forehead on the hands. So the upper body stays, there's a sense of broadness across the upper body, but the upper body stays on the floor. Okay, so the elbows wide-ish, as wide as the shoulders, maybe wider, forehead down. So we're going to focus just on the legs now. So I want you to lift one leg and lift the other, lengthen. And then on an inhale, it's in 4 parts. Okay, so inhale, lift the left leg. Exhale, fold the left leg, keeping it lifted. Inhale, extend the left leg. And exhale, down. And then switch legs. So inhale the right leg. Exhale, fold the right leg, keeping it lifted. Inhale, extend the right leg. Exhale, down. Just 2 breaths per movement, 4 movements. I'll just show that again on both sides. Inhale, left leg. Exhale, fold, keeping the leg lifted. Inhale, extend. Exhale, down. And repeat. Inhale, lift. Exhale, fold. On the other side. Inhale, extend. Exhale, down. So following your own breath now, alternating between 2 sides. Inhale, lifting. Exhale, folding. Inhale, extending. Exhale, down. Alternating between the 2 sides of the body. It's a sense of really projecting down the leg when you lift or extend. So you're lengthening through the pelvis, from the upper body through the pelvis. So it's not just lifting the leg. There's a sense of lengthening through the pelvis into the leg. So connecting the upper body, the lower body. Okay, doing one more on each side. Inhale, lift, exhale, fold. Inhale, lift, exhale, lower. Inhale on the other side, exhale, fold. Inhale, lift, lengthen, and exhale down. And rest. From there, on an inhale, once again, coming through all fours. If you want to take the dog pose, that's fine. Opening the backs of the legs, or you can just rest into child's pose, or sitting back on the feet. Or you could do both, moving through dog pose. And take a rest completely for a few moments into either child's pose or sitting on the feet. Breathe there again, coming into stillness. See what's going on in the body overall. So coming back to a whole body awareness. Checking in with your mood. Checking in with the breath. Checking in with your changing experience. Okay, from there, coming up into all fours. I'd like us to come back onto our back. I'm just thinking, for this, it's definitely going to be more helpful if I change my angle. Hopefully I fit into the frame. Okay. Yeah. Gosh. It's going to move the camera a little bit. So you're lying on your back. I want you to... Okay, that's it. So I want you to bring the soles of the feet towards the ceiling. Okay, so we're going to work into the pelvis. So the soles of the feet towards the ceiling, and then we bend the knees. And you can either take hold of the inner ankle, inner heels, or some people prefer to take hold of the big toes. Okay, so I change around this way. Okay, that's it. That's good. So from here, more passive pose, allow the back of the pelvis to sink towards the floor. If you can, allowing the sacrum to drop down to the floor. So in some cases, the feeling is because of tightness around the lower back and the pelvis, the groins, and so on, you find that the tailbone lifts. So I think that's fine. I mean, if somebody really wants to have an experience of the tailbone grounded, you could put a brick under the back of the pelvis, and that'll give more a sense of sacrum, and particularly the sacrum rooted to the floor. You can also work that way. Okay, from there, we're going to extend, bring the shins parallel to the floor. So it's not going to help having a brick there for that. So the pelvis is now definitely on the floor. And I want you to bring the hands to the inner knees, okay? So as we inhale, just simply open the inner legs, open the knees. As we exhale, we resist. As we pull the knees back towards each other, so it's adduction, resisting the adduction. Inhale, open, quite softly, but exhale. As you exhale, you're pulling against the inner legs. So you really feel the inner legs working. Inhale, floating out the legs. My knees are bent, shins parallel to the floor. Exhale, resisting. Do that 3 or 4 more times. Inhale, floating the legs wide. Exhale, drawing in. Back of the pelvis on the floor. sacrum grounded. Resist with the hands, the arms. Okay, next time we take the knees wide, I'd just like you to pause there. So allow the weight of the hands, the arms to gently open the groin area. Back of the pelvis on the floor. Breathing there. Without forcing, just gently opening across the groins, or seeing if that area will open, or how much it resists opening. Okay, and release. So we're going to embrace the thighs towards the body, interlacing the fingers. Allow the back of the pelvis to be quiet, the lower back to be quiet. And I'm going to do a similar movement now to extend the legs towards the vertical. So this is more intense because we've got the legs straight. We bring the hands to the inner knees. Okay. And then as you exhale, inhale it open, the legs wide. As you exhale, resist. Bring the legs together again. Okay, inhale, floating. The legs wide. Exhale. Resisting. 5 or 6 times. I'm just finding the whole area is like kind of shaking. Inhale, floating wide. Exhale, drawing in. So it's not an area of the body we necessarily work that much. So resisting with the exhale. Next time we inhale and open, so if you can just pause there for a moment. If you can, you're straightening the legs as much as is possible. Breathing there. If you've got more flexibility, you might be able to take hold of the big toes, extending the legs more intensely. So if that doesn't work for you, keep the hands on the inner legs. And when you're ready, folding the legs, again, embracing, interlacing the fingers, allowing the back of the pelvis, lower back to be quiet. Taking some breaths. So I want you to bring one hand onto each knee now. As we inhale, we float the knees away from you. So you're gently rocking the pelvis backwards and forwards. As you exhale, float the knees towards you. Apanasana, inhale, floating the knees away. So if you're up for this, one more time. So taking the legs towards the vertical, hands to the inner knees, opening the backs of the legs as much as is possible. So as you inhale, float the knees wide, legs wide. Exhale, resisting. 4 or 5 times. Inhale, taking the legs wide. Exhale, pushing back, resisting against the inner legs with the hands. Inhale wide. Exhale back. Inhale, I want you to take your feet wide and then bring the hands together, as it were, between the legs, palms together. And then see if you can look towards your hands, lifting the head just for a moment. Looking towards the hands. Probably everything's shaking. Wow. Breathing now. When you're ready, once again, folding the legs towards your chest. And take a pause there, breathing. And interlace the fingers. allow the back of the pelvis to soften, lower back to soften towards the floor. Okay, from here, rolling to one side. I'm going to reposition my mat lengthways across the screen. And we're going to come down onto one side now. Gosh. Okay, so again, we've done this kind of in another context. So I'd like us to, you can support your head on, you're like lying in this position. So my knees are bent and my head is supported on the hand. Okay, more or less one line between the hip, the side of the body, the shoulder, and the elbow, more or less. So I'm on my right side, my left hand is down on the floor. I want to extend out the left leg, okay? And then on an inhale, we're lifting. Exhale down. So it should be fairly easy, this, okay? Inhale, lifting. Exhale down. This is the top leg. Inhale, lifting. Exhale down. This should be fairly easy, okay? With the top leg, it gets more interesting on the lower leg. So again, we're doing abduction, adduction. Abduction is lifting away from the floor. I was checking it today. I always mix those up as well. Abduction, adduction. If I'm just creating more confusion, do check it up, check it out. Okay, releasing down. I'm going to turn around, stand myself up on I'm now onto the left side of the body, and knees bend up both together. Extend my right leg out, and the same movement. Inhale up, exhale down. Fairly easy. A sense of keeping the leg engaged, projecting towards the heel, towards the toes. Somehow quite elegant movement. My right hand is in a supporting function. I'm keeping my right leg engaged. Left leg is more passive. Inhale, extending up. Exhale down. Okay, coming to rest. I want us to roll back onto the right side of the body. Now it is going to be useful to have some sort of cushion or bolster or block. I'm going to go for the bolster. So it's a slightly different setup with the legs, okay? Because, actually, just so you can see better, I use a couple of bricks. So my left knee is now supported on the bricks. I'm on my right side, more or less straight line, but my right leg is extended along the floor in line with the upper body, okay? The right leg, so the left leg is bent up, more or less same height as the hip. So here I'm trying to lift the lower leg now, because this is more intense. On the inhale, lifting up, exhale down. Inhale, lifting, exhaling down. Or if you prefer, exhaling, lifting, inhaling down. So you can work out the breath with this. Again, we're looking to keep the straight leg active towards the heel, towards the toes. The top arm, like it's the left arm, is more like in a balancing role. So again here, so the difficult action is the adduction. Just lifting working the inner legs. So we're contracting the inner thigh. And a couple more. And releasing. Changing sides. You're setting up onto your left side. Left hand supporting the head. My right knee is now on the bricks. Left leg extending along the floor, more or less in line with the upper body. Right hand is in the supporting roll. When I'm ready, exhaling, lifting, inhaling down. So you may notice quite a difference between the two sides of the body. I'm just noticing this side is in a way weaker or less able. Left side of the body, left leg. I'm projecting into the heel of the straight leg towards the ball of the straight leg. Couple more times. And resting. Okay, from here, I'd like us to roll around. You can discard the bricks, roll around onto the back of the body. So hopefully this will work. Yeah, so we're going to make like a T shape with the arms. This should work with the camera now. And then bring both legs together up towards the chest. This is again, it's not one of my kind of favorite outer leg, outer thigh work movements, postures. So we're going to take both legs to the right, okay? But the gaze goes towards the left, or it could go towards the ceiling. So what we're going to do is activate or lengthen the left leg. Okay, so as I inhale, I extend the left leg. So you might want to check what's happening the first couple of times. And as you exhale, you fold that back. So I'm keeping the left leg parallel to the floor, knees slightly separated. Extending on the inhale, folding on the exhale. The inhale, extending. Exhale, folding the upper body quiet, chest open, arms wide. The work is going into the outer thigh mainly, primarily. Also works around, the gluteals, the hip rotators, around the sacrum. Extending on the inhale, exhale, back to center. And we'll do the same on the other side. So try to keep the knees fairly close to the body, not closing the gap completely. Your right leg stays parallel to the floor, the gaze to the right as we inhale, extend. Exhale, fold. Try and keep the thigh bones parallel. Inhale, extend. Exhale, fold. Inhale, extend. You could just check with the gaze, but once you've got that, the gaze goes opposite to the legs, to the right. Extending on the inhale, like a gentle swing of the leg. One more time, inhaling. Exhale, fold the legs and roll back to center. There's one more move that we can do within this pose. So we're going to externally rotate the top leg. So I'll just talk us through it and we'll do it together. So bringing the knees up towards your chest, arms wide, back of the body Softening towards the floor. Take both legs to your right. Take the gaze to the left. So we're going to extend the left leg parallel to the floor, and then I want you to see if you can turn the toes towards the ceiling. So you might want to look to see if anything's actually happening. Very intense on the outer thigh. So see if you can turn the toes towards the ceiling on the left leg. So it's externally rotating. So you'll feel that really strongly in the buttock, the outer thigh, that whole tensor fascia lata runs down the outer buttock. But see if you can take the gaze then to the left, away from the leg, holding that for a few breaths, release on the exhale, and back to center. Take a pause. That should feel pretty intense. If it isn't, I'd be surprised. So floating your knees towards you, keeping the thighs fairly close to the body. You're not trying to close the gap, but close to your body. Take the legs to the left now. Take the gaze to the right. Extend your right leg parallel to the floor, and then turn the toes. Externally rotate the right leg. Breathing into that. So we're going to hold that for a few breaths. The kind of really hideous stretch on the outer right thigh. Turning your toes towards the ceiling. Breathing now. Taking the gaze away from the legs. And when you're ready, folding the leg on an inhale, back to center. Exhale, dropping into semi-supine. Take a pause there. You should feel like the whole lower body is more open, more energized right now. So we're coming to just a simple stretch. So I illustrated this earlier. So I want you to bring your right ankle just above your left knee. Thread your right arm through the legs and take hold of your left shin. Head staying resting down. So a passive stretch for the hip rotator area. Breathing now. Time is flying otherwise. Okay. So we are going to go on till past. Hopefully that's all right for everybody. Okay, releasing down. Switch sides. So your left ankle. So you can, if you have your ankle just above the knee, it means you can keep the left foot a little bit active. And then you take your left hand through the legs, your right hand around the outside, taking hold of the right shin, shoulders relaxed, releasing, head releasing. Breathing there, allow the back of the pelvis to sink towards the floor. Softening the face. And releasing down. Release down for a moment into semi-supine. So we're just going to do two more things. Okay, so one is more active, but the last one is more passive. So I'd like you to have, if you can, 3 bricks underneath the pelvis. So we're going to set up into the Vipara Pidam, as it's called, the bridge, 2-foot bridge post. So, but I'm deliberately keeping the bridge quite low, okay? You can do it on a higher raise, but I'm aware that not everybody's going to have necessarily these foam bricks at hand. So, but some sort of raise for the back of the pelvis that's fairly solid would be good. You could use a bolster, okay? And then we open the chest, extend the arms down by the side. So we're enhancing a little bit the work in the upper body. And then I want you to float the legs up carefully to the vertical. Readjust the upper body, neck long. So we're coming into the Viparapita, no, sorry, Viparita Karani, the version of Viparita Karani. And then release the hands down to the floor, so the palms facing towards the floor. Just can be a little bit intense. We'll just see how we get on with this. So as you exhale, I want you to drop your right leg towards the floor or parallel to the floor, and then inhale, you float it back up. Okay, so it's like working the front of the leg. Exhale the other leg down. So if this doesn't feel okay on the lower back or anywhere else, then don't do it. Float the leg back up. Exhale, alternating between the two sides of the body. Inhaling up. Exhale down. The legs don't have to be perfectly straight. And repeat, alternating between two sides of the body. As I'm lengthening or dropping the leg down, I'm lengthening through the legs. So I'm having a sense of lengthening through the pelvis. Exhale down. Inhale up. So this has been really useful for like low back issues that I've had, which as far as I can see are related to the psoas. But if this feels like it's too strong or it's just aggravating, then don't do. Okay, just stay in the upright position. My arms are gently active towards the floor, so it's a sense of creating stability in the upper back, neck long. Definitely, I mean, you can do this, you know, those cork bricks. I have tried it, but it's very intense around the sacrum. So I think it's better to have a wider support across the back of the pelvis. So it could even be like a folded blanket, but just so there's a little bit of raise there. Okay, next time we bring both legs up to the vertical, looking for a point of poise there, and pause. Balancing the legs over the pelvis. Inner legs together. Okay, and then bending one leg, releasing the foot to the floor, coming back to Dvipada. This kind of low version of Dvipada. Take out the bricks. Coming back to semi-supine, take a pause. And we're going to come into our last pose, okay, before Shavasana. So I'd like us to do a full, as it were, thigh stretch. So I'm going to use the bolster, but you could, what you want usually is quite a pile of stuff behind you. Okay, because then we're going to come to sit between the feet with the pile of stuff behind you. Okay, you might even need a bit of extra bricks at hand. Okay, now you can do this with a strap across the thighs, so that pulls the knees together. I'm not going to do that, but you could do that if you want to try that later in the week. Do try where you put a strap around the whole of the leg. We're opening the front of the ankles towards the floor, and then we're very slowly lowering ourselves back. Okay, first onto the elbows, and you can let your tailbone tuck under, so you can retrovert the pelvis if that's helpful, and you can let the knees separate. And I'm lowering myself to the floor, well, actually to the bolster, and bring some, yeah, it's much more comfortable on the head to have it slightly higher in my case. Okay, I mean, it depends, you know, if I'm more elastic, which does happen, then I may go all the way to the floor. So you just need to work out what's your level, and it's going to really vary a lot in your own classes. with your own students. This is like massive, there can be a massive range of possibilities with this. So some people will not be able to get into this at all. You might just work with sitting on the feet like we did at the beginning of the session. And some people will just fall all the way to the floor. They've got really long thigh muscles, okay? So you're resting back. If you want to enhance the work through the upper back, as we did at the beginning, you can fold the elbow or wrap the forearms and take the hands above the head, the arms above the head. So I'm going to invite you again to close the eyes. Coming into stillness. So it's a very particular sequence this evening, or this morning, whenever you come to do it. If you're following the recording. We're aiming around the thighs, the hip joint, to some extent, the lower body. With a mixture of toning, strengthening, and opening movements. You can, just for the last few moments of this taught sequence, being as still as possible and allowing your experience to be as it is. Again, tuning into pleasant sensation, unpleasant sensation. If you find the position is too easy, it's fine to come out and go back in again with less support. Really being as still as possible and listening to what's happening. Inhabiting the body from the inside outwards. So I think one of the dangers, I mean, I was talking about this at the beginning of the session, this idea of living on the inside of the practice. So awareness from within rather than from out. One of the dangers of yoga is that it can just be another thing that you kind of do to your body, okay? So I think it's just something worth reflecting on and observing if that is the case. That you're putting your body through a set of exercises or sequences almost in like a mechanical way. Because, you know, apparently it's a good thing to do, it's a good idea, or somebody's recommended it. But you're not actually, as it were, in the experience. Okay, so it's just a question. I'm not saying anyone's doing that. But I think it can happen, and it is one of the dangers of yoga practice. So it can become like just another imposition. Rather than an opportunity to explore from the inside out. It's just something to reflect on. And that can be true of almost every single activity that we do. Like from what, you know, a lot of the things we just have to do, you have to wash the plates or take a shower now and again or whatever, work. So the question is, Are we on the inside or are we on the outside of that experience? And if we're feeling that we're somehow alienated or disconnected or separate from experience, see if we can find ways to crawl back in. So what qualities do we need to generate? We're more on the inside. The quality of curiosity would be one. Interest, paying attention, cultivating presence, interest. So each of us can reflect or look at that. Okay, over the next days. Okay, I'd like us to very carefully come out. So we could stay there longer. Okay, it's a kind of pose where you could be in there for 10 minutes. But very carefully use the elbows and the hands to come back up. So just as a pose, sort of counter pose, I quite like to recommend after that pose, Supta Beerasana, the reclining heroes, to lie down where you support the pelvis a bit higher than the legs. I mean, I'm doing that very minimally with a brick, but you could also do that with the bolster. So this works. It can feel quite pleasant on the lower back area, sacrum. Question is what you do with your head. So you can turn the head to one side just for a minute or two. So I call this the blue whale pose. Imagine yourself floating on the surface of the sea. Belly down. Okay. So from there, I want you to set yourselves up into Shavasana. Okay, so use the bolster or the blocks under the backs of the knees. Make sure you're going to be warm enough. There's like definitely no danger of cooling down here. So do what you need to do to set up in Shavasana. So yeah, if it's appropriate to put more layers on, put a blanket over you, then do so. And rest back onto your back. So I'm going to just lead it in for a couple of minutes because we're already well into the session. Okay. So I'd like to rest into the floor and get a sense of the impact of that sequence on your body. Coming back into a whole body experience. Whole body experience. So it's a sense of the whole body. Top of the head to the toes, in space, in the lying down position. And then in your own time, tuning into more specific sensations in the body. So some areas, I said this before, so they might be calling your attention. So this is one of the ways that we can work this method that I was mentioning at the beginning of the session. You start to listen to, as it were, your experience, particular blocks or tensions or sensations. Start to feel your way in and see what's going on there very gently, without expectation. And then tuning in with a sense of the moods. could just do that by a question. How am I? How am I? Being aware of your breathing. And being aware of your experience as one of change, this quality of anitya. So I'm going to bid you farewell. I really invite you to stay there for at least a few minutes more, okay? It's now, yeah, I do realize I've gone over time, so apologies for that. And see you soon. Take care.